Good morning, everyone. Hello to all of you from lovely Pearson Airport as I catch a flight this afternoon, such as our lives these days. I hope everybody is having a great Thursday. We are really happy to be a part of Marketing Leadership Week and supporting everybody in this journey of understanding AI and where that fits with the human interaction. And I think there's not a week that goes by that we don't have yet another headline appearing about some dynamic that's happening in the industry. Eve and I are going to talk about a lot more about the governance and decisions and ethics that are associated with AI. This will be highly interactive and helping you take that journey from how you create internal value to external value for your organization. So just a little bit about what we're going to cover today, and also a little bit of Charterhouse rules. Please feel free to use the chat throughout. There will be a few prompts as I go through my section as Eve's section as well, where we will ask you some questions and ask for some feedback and even ask for some of your guesses about answers to questions. I'm going to cover some internal governance and ambition, how you actually strategically plan for AI projects, deep diving into data hygiene and quality, which is a topic we don't talk enough about in association with AI. How do you do internal AI prioritization? How do you start looking at your business case? And then how do you start building an implementation roadmap? Eve's going to cover how you shift the lens and think about health-centric personalization. The market, you just can't ignore as an opportunity, the regulations that are coming into place, and how you start redesigning the core. So again, please feel free to use the chat. I will have breaks to catch up to questions as we proceed. And when I'm done my section, I have to go catch up. So hopefully everybody can follow along, and hopefully you take away something that will help you build your AI capabilities and really think about how to set yourselves up for success. My name is Sarah Thompson. I am Executive Managing Director at Glassroom. And my first question for everyone is, do you have a governance plan in your organization when it comes to AI? Please feel free to use the chat to the right. It would be great to see anybody's comments right off the bat. Do you have a governance plan? Do you have structure? Do you have decision-making? Are you a part of it? Roberta, no. Anybody else? Yes. Well, that's good to hear. David, in the works? Jaron, no. Anybody else? No. Well, if you don't, I will just say you're kind of not alone. The larger the marketing organization, generally, the more likely you are to have some sort of AI program in place right now. But most of the AI projects that are happening within corporate organizations are all in silos. So they're a marketing department, the finance department, everybody doing their own thing without an overarching governance structure in place. And the reason why that's important is as you build out these capabilities, you can end up with a lot of complications in the journey, a lot of duplicative efforts, a lot of cost escalation. It always reminds me back in the day when we all loved to have as many software as a service licenses and capabilities. And then all of a sudden somebody's auditing going, everything is an overlap. And I know all of us live through that in organization. So setting the stage for all of us, it's really important to play a role as marketers in how your company is going to govern and develop their AI program. The reason why is because AI's sort of intersection with everybody's organizations usually comes down to these things on the right. It's an efficiency play, it's a cost reduction, it's to help you make better decisions, it's to help you move faster to market, it's to improve the omni-channel experience or personalization of the customer experience, which is very big right now as a topic in marketing. And it's also supposed to drive stronger business outcomes. So when you look at developing a business strategy, it has to fall into one of these or multiple of these for you to actually build your business case and governance structure. The disconnect in all organization actually starts here, and this is from some recent analysis that I've done using AI of a bunch of different studies and different objectives, and how CEOs, CFOs, and CMOs are all talking about AI in their business. The CEO, of course, is talking about operational excellence, regulations, supporting their talent, new business models in areas that they want to get into. CFOs looking at cost reductions, how are they going to have better governance, and what are the scenarios for their business that they want to plan to. And the CMO is talking about personalization, insights, content, brand safety, campaign optimization. So you can already see the disconnect at the top as we start to build governance structures across our organization. And the governance actually starts here. How do you have cross-functional collaboration amongst your organization, ensuring that there's alignment with legal, IT, marketing, and operations? You need to break down the silos for AI to be really successful for your organization, because often you're creating a marketing solution that is a go-to-market that actually can serve a purpose somewhere in your organization. It also depends on the title and sort of your remit when it comes to being a marketer. How much ground do you actually cover? Do you just cover brand? Do you cover the entire customer experience? Are you in charge of commercials as well? So it's really important to understand, how do you get all of these players together so that as you're working through your AI project, you're not ending up with red tape further down the line, a lack of buy-in, a lack of understanding, or a lack of trust. You also need to determine who is in charge of your AI strategy within your organization. And there's pros and cons to all of these choices. Do you build a dedicated office that's cross-collaborative? Do you look at just the data teams within your organization, the individuals that have been in charge of potentially your CDP or your customer databases within your organization? Or does it sit with IT, and do they have the expertise for that? The interesting part about AI is, as much as there is cloud computing and technology in place, more often than not, this is a data. So do you have an IT team that's more about pipes, or do you have an IT team that has always been about data governance and how clean the water is in the pipes? That's a really important distinguishing determination to make as you look at who do you bring together in this journey. You also need to have compliance and risk. My partner actually works as a compliance and risk officer at one of our banks. And we talk about this all the time, about addressing data privacy laws. Where are they going to move to? Where is PII compliance? Even with synthetic data and other means, where is the data going to sit? How are you going to access it? This has been a big topic of conversation when you deploy things like Copilot to all of your employees, making sure that they're using your instance of information. But it goes even further. What are your internal policies when it comes to data privacy, how you use it and how you govern it, and how are you making sure that it's compliant, especially when you're going to start feeding it corporate data that is proprietary to you, information that is owned by your organization. And the final one is that you need to align on ethical principles. What are the transparency, fairness, and accountability that you expect in AI? What are the data sources? Are you going to pay for them? Are you only going to rely on tools that are scraping public data sources? Do you understand where and how within the organization citations exist? Where did this data come from? These are all important questions to ask, as well as looking at the bias that can be inherently in the AI model of how you are testing it and the applications. Does it feed out a response that is something a little bit more negligible just because it's not factoring in different socioeconomic factors? This is really important to start focusing on. So if you're going to start looking at governance, this is where you start. On these 4 pillars, who do you bring together? Who should be a part of that team? How do you want to do this ethically? And how do you want to make sure it's in compliance with your overall organization? So what is the barrier right now to adoption from an AI perspective? The biggest area of this that these little kitties are talking about is data privacy and security concerns. It's the reason why we have such a compelling protection around data privacy in Canada, especially. But the problem with that is that it also keeps us from having innovation or thinking through the problems. PII, privacy compliance, GDPR, and other regulations can be managed if you're looking at it with all of the teams playing a role and playing a part. But the one that's really interesting is just the concerns about data. What is actually feeding into your AI in order to generate that response? How accurate is it? Is it actually comprehensive? Does it factor in, contextual information so that you're not just looking at something in the very sliver of the opportunity? These are all really important things to factor in. So here's a question for everyone, and hopefully you can answer it in the chat. Do you trust your data? Somewhat, nope, no, no. Stresses me out. Just think about how many things we decide within our organizations. Depends on the source, absolutely. All the decisions we make all the time within organizations around just the data side of things. And yeah, even when you're working online, especially if you're creative and you're doing Google Desktop. The other part is in Canada, the amount of data is disparate, not actually always inclusive. If you're using panel data, it's really hard to get that. Are you using the most readily available data is always a question as well. But I'll talk to you about why this is such an important thing to factor into your journey. Because all of us have been treating data quality like it's like buying insurance, and no one wants to buy more insurance. It's a problem in how we've been governing and structuring and managing our data as organizations that has ended up having an issue with trust. That also plays a role if you're using second or third party data sources and how you're applying AI. So you're subscribing to a panel in Canada like Aviva Data. That when you look at these, is it comprehensive enough? What was their methodology? How frequently is it refreshed? There's so many factors. But the paradox of data is that while we're all investing in AI, and then you see trust in data now is sitting at about 50%, our chief data officers don't even trust their data. And this is a newer rule, especially as AI has come into place over the last couple of years. I think it started when we had to all sort of centralize against a CDP, that there was more consulting. We all talked about the advantages of acquiring more first-party data, and then how do you manage and govern it? So we had a chief data officer come, but they're cleaning up a lot of mess and to manifest a huge opportunity in the AI space. So the plentiful issues of data are because of these. And it's really important for all of us to take a step back and look at, how do I trust my data even within my corporate organization? The first is lifecycle management. There is not usually structure around managing data through its lifecycle. First-party data, those records, how are you keeping them refreshed? How out of date are they? I always put it in the media space too, of when a client wants to push into a clean room and do matching in a programmatic space, how new is that data? How refreshed is that? Is that something that I can actually rely on? And the test and learns of that is really important. Now extrapolate that when you start thinking about AI. How fresh is that data? How clean is that data? And that leads to the second one. How well maintained is it? How and what have you put in place with your relationship, especially with customer data, to make sure it's well maintained? But the same is also true for financial data, digital performance data, anything that you are using. I also like this too when you start thinking about things like brand data, all of those things that either sit in PowerPoint decks or Excel spreadsheets. How can you maintain that? How is it organized? How is it accessible? You also need to dig into the bias. Where is there bias in the data analysis and the way that we've approached our data collection and our approach to it, and making sure that you truly understand that, so that when AI is using all of these data sources, you understand where there are blind spots. There are also going to be those blind spots because you're going to be missing data. I talk about this all the time with strategists. How can you make a business decision on a media strategy with a client when you don't have contextual information about how the competitor was in market, what their offer was, how they were performing? Often it's not a share of voice, it's just a share of how you were more successful with your investment than someone else. Again, trust. How does your organization have trust in the data sources and the analytics? Do you count on them? Are they a must-have? Or are they just something because you don't have anything else available? It's such an important thing to take a really hard look at all your third-party data sources. What are you subscribing to? What do you have internally for your first party data, not just customer information, but your corporate data? And then looking at any second party relationships that you have where you're getting fed back information from another source. How much can you trust it? Are you certain that that's the cleanest pull possible? Of course, we also have all the silos that we create as organizations. Somewhere within your organization is an answer to a question that you've always wanted to have, but we all live in silos. Who sits on it? How do you have access to it? How do you make that part of your AI strategy? And because of that, you don't have collaborative integration. And then the final two are, is it even available? Can I access it? Is it in a PDF? Is it sitting in an Excel file somewhere in a Google Drive? Can I find it? Those are all really important questions to start asking, as well as I have either overvalued or undervalued my digital assets. For the past year, I did a lot of consulting work on data valuation, assessors of data value within Canada. And it's really interesting to see that most people either are undervaluing their data assets in Canada, don't realize it can be a data product in Canada to generate revenue, or they're overvaluing it because there's no market demand or competition. So it's really interesting space right now. We obsess about pipes so much in our industry, and this is where we need to start obsessing about the data quality. But this has happened because we've had poor governance, ineffective leadership that has led to systematic organizational failures of how you govern. We've also had a lack of oversight, people who haven't managed it. It hasn't been their accountability, or it's been a whole bunch of people's accountability. We also have trust. There's an organizational cohesion. Where's the reliable data? And also we are now probably buried in a little bit of data debt. I've been collecting all of this. I can't use it. And I also don't know the value. So that also leads to a journey of devaluing data. My next question for all of you guys, how many factors do you think that there are when it comes to data valuation? It's a number. How many different factors do you think there are that determine data quality? What do you think the number is? Often you will hear things like relevance. How many of those do you think there actually are that determine quality of data? Guesses. I'll take any guesses. 6. Thanks, Roberta. Anybody else? Just put a number in. Random numbers. 23. Anybody else? 10, 7, 4. Well, thank you, Rick. 15. As many as there are data sources. Now, this is an interesting one. Data sources and determinations of quality of data are two different things. But here's your answer to your question. There are these many different definitions and attributes of determining the quality of your data. So let's go through them left to right. The integrity of your data. Often you'll end up with things like, is it accurate or complete or consistent or credible? But you also have to have, is it traceable? Can I actually find the source of it? Is it representative of the entire opportunity? Is it consistent? When the data is flowing in, are there breaks? Are there things that impose on the quality of it? And the next, as I was talking about before, is compliance, security, and ethics. And yes, please feel free to screenshot this because most people don't know all of the factors of data and only pull away about 4. Security and ethics, is it transparent? Are you being transparent about the source? Is it secure? Is it private? Was it fair of how you acquired the data? The web scraping industry is growing at double digits every year because if you don't have your Cloudflare protection up, your website is being scraped. Your website could be scraped because of price, because of offers that are used for competitive intelligence. But it also has some downside because you also want to make sure that your site is being crawled from a search perspective. Pros and cons to everything. Operational and performance factors. Is it costly to manage it? Is there a value to it? Is it efficient? Is it interoperable? Is it in the right format? Can I import it? Is it resilient? Does it hold up over time? And is it the most recent that I possibly can get? And then of course, usability and accessibility. Can I find it? Does it add value to the questions that I have? Is it balanced? Is there enough in that data file that I can use? And we often think of data sources as something, that you subscribe to, or something that is a pipe that comes at you. But within that can be anything. You can leverage an API. You can look at it as a flat file. There's so many different ways that you can approach data. You can also have to make sure that it's unique and understandable. And then uniqueness is really important, especially as you're stacking data together, so that you have something that gives you a fulsome picture of the problems and questions that you're trying to solve with AI. So if you don't have data quality management at this kind of rigor within your organization, you need to find a way to start. And this is a great conversation starter for your organization. How much of this do we cover? Who manages it? How ready are we for it? Because that will make your AI that much more successful in any format that you're doing. If you're doing an AI agent, if you're doing a RAG model, if you're building out just internal capabilities from a market research perspective, all of it will be cleaner, more reliable. And what you want when you do AI is to ensure that you trust the answers that are coming out. And here's the foundation of trust. So what areas are being discussed for all of you right now as the biggest opportunities when it comes to AI? We talked about this at the beginning of where the CEO and CFO are. What are the things that you guys are all working on? What are the topics and opportunities that you see? Also, is anybody surprised by how many things measure quality? Please feel free to use the chat. Don't be shy. Great. Just helping others navigate AI. Fantastic. Customer experience, Debbie, thank you. A big one is the customer experience journey, the promise of personalization, which actually always comes down to the data, not the AI capabilities of interconnecting channels. It's whether or not you have all of those other things related to data addressed. Feel free to use the chat as we go through this. But when you start looking at the internal projects and the opportunities that you can start building out in your capabilities, this is where I would start. We often love to get to the, how do we build this out for the customer experience? How do we make it more personal? How do we start doing generative AI projects? These are the less sexy things, but as a nerd myself, especially when it comes to strategy, intelligence, media investment, which will always be your biggest P&L, these are the categories that are so important to, number one, unify your team, to make sure everybody is talking in the same language, and where you have data availability that probably hasn't been used in the right way. So let's go through these. One is decision support. You can have competitive benchmarking, market intelligence, and pricing forecast. You can start looking at how do you make a better decision in marketing and no more guessing. At least have something that is a single source of truth for everybody to talk about these things in the same way. I think the biggest problem in a lot of marketing organizations is that if you didn't rely or trust your data, everybody else was doing Google desktop research, seeing things in their own particular way. But if you set up your data quality capabilities and you start setting up governance, these things come sooner. From a business intelligence perspective, segmentation is often underutilized in this. Have you been relying on a market survey of people putting confirmation bias in some of the answers to the questions? Or can you start taking a tiered and a layered data approach and looking at your segmentation models based on the customer that you have, customer lifetime value, what are their attributes, how are they behaving differently? This now becomes more real, and you don't need to keep going out to market and doing massive panel research projects. You can start using your own data with that and start building segmentation. Carla is going to talk about today about AI agents. I love a good AI agent. I built a few non-coded just for me to have constant streams of market intelligence, competitive intelligence, business dynamics, consumer data, anything that can come at me about any number of my clients so I can keep abreast of all of their businesses. But I also do it where I know the citation of it, the media source, and that there's some sort of revenue stream that the publisher is getting. Can't stay away from my local media mission. You can also look at workflow automation. How do you have reports and dashboards? What are some of the productivity tools? How do you help manage the workflow amongst your marketing organization from beginning to end? Are you still creating Word document briefs that sit in files that no one can remember a year ago what we even briefed as we asked? Or creative and media plans that sit in PowerPoint text? You can now have all of those accessible to you so that you can go back and look at things easier, and you can query them. What did we do in December of last year when it came to this campaign, and what were our results? Saves a lot of time from going through either SharePoint or a Google Drive. Data management. There's a lot of tools that are coming out right now that can help you clean your data using AI. So all the problems that I was talking about earlier, now AI can start to address and clean it up. And you can start building predictive analytics models. Especially important when you start thinking about media. You have $1 million. What is the best way to predict the outcome of that $1 million investment in market without deciding, hey, search is always the answer for that budget? It's not necessarily true. And then, of course, media in housing, the elements that you should have as capabilities. It is your money. It is your investment. How do you decide on budget allocations and decisions? And of course, media mix modeling. One of the biggest challenges of media mix modeling is most of the models sit outside the firewalls of organizations, not close enough to the business result, not close enough to customer data. But when you marry an MMM with predictive analytics, such opportunities and conversations start to happen, especially with your external agency partners and your media agency. You're all singing from the same truth. You all trust the data that's within those models, and you can start building out new opportunities and decisions and how you look at strategy of marketing. These, to me, are the most exciting inside opportunities for any marketing organization. And as you work through developing your business case, again, this is what you need to factor in as a team. Who are the stakeholders? What are the benefits and outcomes? What are the data sources? What are the AI solutions? What do we need to win to do this successfully? What's the product rollout? What are the business goals, needs, data quality, security issues, and evaluation that this actually did what we expected? We often like to sprint to shiny new objects as marketers, when in fact, we need to sit and take a look at the business case and why we are doing it. These projects can be resource intensive. They can also be costly because you're talking about data, you're talking about talent, you're talking about technology. These are usually some of the biggest capital expenses we have with the promise of productivity and efficiency and some revenue gain. Are you walking into it with your eyes wide open? This is so important. This is what I work through with clients all the time. How do you even set this up for success? So, is your talent really, 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 really ready? This is the big question. I would think that a lot of the talent within our organizations is really either apprehensive or excited about the potential of AI. But you need to have governance and structure to be able to deliver on the promise of AI. So how do you make that all happen? Let's just recap everything that I talked about. You need to have stakeholder buy-in. You need to have some sort of governance structure. You need to have a business case, strong justification for all the projects that you're looking at. You need to start small, but think big. Where do you start with small projects for scalability, for things that you can do right now, and then build it out? Make sure you have a data quality reassessment. Evaluate and improve data quality within your organization. Also, have a data acquisition strategy, gathering all the necessary data you need for the project. This is an area in Canada where we actually are far behind our Americans. We don't have enough data products or depth of data within the Canadian market. A huge opportunity to start looking at new relationships with media owners, other businesses, and a privacy compliant and ethical approach to data products and acquisition to round out what you have. Data is a great product and has a lot of potential if you're doing it in an ethical way. As well, do you have a knowledge repository? Are you creating a centralized knowledge base where everybody can see your approach, your governance, why we do things, so that you don't get that email where somebody goes, this new Gen AI tool just came out. Can I try it? Everybody will understand how and why you're making decisions. Then you can start looking at building or buying. Is this something that we can build ourselves because the models are now cost effective? Or do we need an off-the-shelf modeling tool that we need to work with another partner? And then start determining, is this in the cloud or is this on-premise? Is this data and this experience going to be within our own environment, or do we need to put it in the cloud based on the size of our organization and who's access? All important decisions to consider. And I'd like to leave everybody with this, because I think Marshall McLuhan, our great Canadian, has always set it up properly with media as a message. But what we always forget from what Marshall McLuhan also said is media is changed by people. AI, like all media, is a message unto itself. And only that media is changed by our interactions with it, how we treat it. And to me, that's also human. And that's what this week has all been about. With that, I will leave it there and see if anybody has any questions. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it. Hopefully you took away something here, at least to think about some of the governance and structure that you have for your organization. I personally am always very excited about the opportunities of AI, but more so, I think what is often not talked enough about is the data sources that you have. Are there any sort of best practices sites offering data creation services? I'm a little bit biased. I came off of working with an organization called Mantis over the last year, and they work with organizations to bring data products in an ethical and compliant way to market. So if you want to reach out to somebody, go and talk to Mantis. They're probably one of the unique assessors of data within Canada. How comfortable are marketers leaning on AI for human insights compared to traditional approaches? Well, I mean, if you have enough disparate data sources and you're really thinking about a layered approach, not black boxes, if you know what's actually in the mix. And this is what I always find really interesting is that a lot of our marketing tools that we even have in Canada are often black box solutions. That data is usually scraped. You could do that too. You can also go out and buy and look at all of your information gaps that you have from a data perspective to help you have a more fulsome opportunity. This is where I actually spent a lot of time. I have an entire document that covers all of the different factors of what I need to know about audience, competitive intelligence, market intelligence, so that I can start looking at data sources that match with my use cases. That's the best place to start, especially when you probably are starting to have subscription fatigue and you are running out of budget for data sources. It's a good moment in time to reassess and go, what do I actually need? What are the business questions that I have? What are my gaps in understanding people? And am I only reliant on a panel survey that comes out every quarter that gives me my segmentation? How can I enrich that? How can I make that more powerful? I always make the joke too that we often end up marketing to technology Tom. Well, now you can have a multifaceted picture of people like technology Tom, but also how are they changing and evolving, right? Consumer insights, especially segmentation, is usually done in the past. Now, if you have quality data and with AI, you can start looking at who is my most valuable customer today? Who will be my most valuable customer? Where's their potential? Where's their gap in my business? What are the opportunities? And this to me is the best conversation, especially as we're investing media dollars, because the future has already happened. So it's so important to do that. Thank you very much to everybody. I am now going to go catch a flight because I'm speaking at an event tomorrow in Calgary. I'm going to hand it over to Eve now, who's going to take you from here. And please bear with us for a moment. She's just going to have to do a bit of a technology change. Thanks, guys.
Hello, everybody. Let me just change the slides. All right. I hope you can see the slides well. Okay. Sarah, have a safe flight. So let me start from here. Good morning and welcome to the part 2 of this session. It's an honor to continue today's discussion, especially following the valuable insights from Sarah on internal data governance. As we just heard, getting your data house in order is non-negotiable. Structured data, interoperability, and ethical governance, well, they form the operational backbone of every AI-driven initiative. But now let's shift the lens from internal integrity to external impact. Because the real opportunity, lies in activating that data to serve not just the business, but the individual, not just faster decisions, but more empathetic ones. We are moving into an era where user experience isn't just about convenience, it's about productivity. It's about building digital interfaces that recognize human vulnerability, age, ability, cognition, and they should adapt accordingly. So to start our active engagements, I would like to ask you to think about your digital experiences across both external platforms and internal tools that you use at work. How comfortable are you with those interfaces and experiences? How well do they support your productivity, your needs? Share a percentage rating in the chat, 10%, 100%. Feel free. Just give you a second. Okay. All right. Okay. Awesome. Well, you see, it's never, well, sometimes it's 100%. That means that you're super healthy and everything works well. And the company put an effort into optimizing all the user journeys. But on average, it's never getting there. Hoping for 50%, that would be already kind of a big thing. So speaking about productivity, it's also where health-centric personalization comes in. I've spent 20 years of my career in deep tech and innovation through the rise of 3G networks, cloud computing, and the early waves of AI and Web3 adoption. I had the chance to launch IBM Watson computer in the emerging markets, work on payment screens for autonomous driving cars, lead personalization and automation at scale. But my own turning point came just before the pandemic. In the end of 2019, I stepped away from my corporate life and, well, became a consultant. I thought I'd ease into it, build innovation strategies, advice on go-to-market and IT automation plans. And then 2020 happened and the pandemic hit. In a couple of months, the entire world went online, just pretty much overnight, right? That's how we felt about it. From shopping to learning and connecting, it was not even a pandemic, it was an epidemic of innovation, for innovation. So to my surprise, I got a wave of messages from AI-driven companies I had worked with. Eve, what's happening? People are at home shopping online. We thought this would be easy, that would be our moment, but customers are abandoning us at the final step. Why? That was the big question. Is it back end or front end? So I started digging deeper, and what I found wasn't a technical bug. It wasn't even about performance. It was a matter of usability and trust. The platforms were simply inaccessible. It was a matter of frustrating journeys. The systems were biased, trained on data sets that excluded or misunderstood large groups of people. People didn't feel seen, people didn't feel safe. And, when people lose trust in your product, they don't just leave, they remember. That's when I had my eureka moments and founded Evenus, with the belief that human-centered, accessible, and health-intuitive design of systems and interfaces isn't just good ethics, it's smart business. So my talk today is not about automation or faster pipelines. It's about how we enable external platforms into truly personalized, compliant, and health-aware brand experiences that meet the moment and scale for the future. In an age of aging populations, regulatory pressure, and heightened user expectations, it is the right thing to focus on. So let's begin with a few stories. Everyone likes good stories, right? Here's the first one. Mark is 32 years old. I met him during the beginning of Evenus, and I learned about his story. Just a few weeks before our interview, he was in a serious car accident. Thankfully, he survived, but both his arms were fractured. While recovering, Mark needed to file an insurance claim to get his vehicle repaired and cover medical bills. With voice navigation through his iPad, he managed to open his provider's web portal, but then things started to fall apart. The site wasn't designed for hands-free use. The claim form required drag and drop file uploads. You know how it is usually, you just upload it like this. Impossible without full hand control, right? Drop-down menus ignored voice commands, error messages appeared on screen but weren't announced by the screen reader. Every step was just simply a new barrier for Mark. After nearly an hour, fatigued, in pain, and frustrated, Mark gave up. He called a friend to come over just to help him complete the basic task, fill out a form, and upload a few documents. So how did Mark feel in this situation? He felt robbed of his dignity, of his independence. He thought that it was like the provider never imagined someone like him might need to use their site. Mark wasn't looking for some sympathy. He was looking for functionality, for digital care that matched his physical reality. Eventually, he switched providers to a company whose portal was more adaptive, health personalized, and easier to use. And here is Meilan. Meilan is 54. She is legally blind, and she shops online using a screen reader. Every day she buys, every day she probably buys something else, but every year when Christmas comes, her family celebrates the holiday, and she loves buying gifts for her kids, siblings, grandkids. It's the tradition she treasures. This year, she heard about a great deal and visited the major online marketplace to shop early. But as she clicked through product listings, the screen reader kept repeating image, 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 blank, button, no description. There were no alternative text known as alt text that described the image. Usually you put it like behind the image, it's not visible, but it is visible for the blind people because the way they see is through reading. If you don't insert that, it is blank blank. Product categories weren't labeled clearly for her. Sizes and pricing were empty in images, making them completely inaccessible to assistive technology. Meilan tried her best, but eventually she gave up, as Mark. She returned to the platform she had used in previous years, the old, less flashy, but more inclusive, and completed her shopping there. She missed on that discount on that campaign, but eventually she got something that made her kids, her family happy. So in her interview, she told me that their website was simply blank for me, as I was for them. That gave me goosebumps. Not only did the platform lose a direct sale, it lost the trust of a new customer who simply wanted to participate like everyone else. And Meilan, unfortunately, did not become a new customer. And here's JD. JD is 21. Such an intelligent, smart fella, gifted systems thinker, recently onboarded as a junior analyst at the National Nuclear Research Lab. Imagine the power of his mind. He also has dyslexia and ADHD. He is neurodivergent, and these traits don't limit his intelligence, but they shape how he processes information. Tasked with building a cross-functional research summary using the lab's new internal R&D platform, JD is expected modern tools to enhance his work, to save his time, to optimize his processes. Instead, he encountered friction at every turn. The platform did not offer dyslexia-friendly fonts, content summaries, or acronym readers, explainers. Complex scientific terms were used without definitions. Layouts were visually dense, and auto-generated content lacked clarity and customization. So JD spent hours trying to decode rather than contribute. His cognitive energy was spent just navigating the tool. Despite his understanding of the subject, he struggled to complete the task, and he submitted late. And he questioned if he truly belonged there. He mentioned in his interview to me that while the platform looked intelligent, it did not recognize his intelligence. He questioned out loud, if a platform can understand data patterns, why can't I use them? And why can't I use the system? And why can't it understand people like me? So here's another question for you. Does your web platform offer health-centric personalization? You can say yes, no, don't know. We're working on it. And what I mean by that, health-centric personalization, are your digital experiences automatically adjust to reduce hand mobility, tremors, arthritis, or even MS, neurodiverse needs like ADHD or autism spectrum processing, vision loss for aging population, or maybe for those who have screen fatigue, speech impairments, when voice interaction is the only option, even low bandwidth or unreliable internet access in rural or underserved areas fall under the accessibility and health-centric design pattern. Okay. Thank you for answering in the chat. All right, give it a thought and try to imagine using your platform by the groups of population, which are actually 71%, of various health evolving needs. So speaking about the market, Sarah mentioned in the content that that's the market you can't ignore. By 2030, 23% of Canada's population will be over the age of 65. It's pretty much similar number for the United States and across the globe here and there. Asia is more accelerated in numbers. And that will mark the country's transition into a super age society. So 2030, Canada, super age society. Many will remain in the workforce well into their 70s, especially if proposed changes to old age security are adopted. You're probably following the OAS, so that's where they are discussing now till which year, which age level to extend your work engagement. And as our population ages and digital experiences deepen, the inability to health personalize your internal systems and external web experiences will cost you, customers and talent alike. Today, people across all age groups are banking online, accessing virtual healthcare, shopping on mobile, learning through digital and immersive platforms, and using tools to work, create, and connect. And yet, despite all this progress, the average digital experience is still designed for a fast-scrolling, high-focus, perfectly sighted, fully able-bodied user. That's no longer the norm. That's pretty much the exception. Globally, as I mentioned, 71% of people have evolving or episodic health needs. 20% experience injuries or temporary impairments, like Mark, every year, impacting how they engage with digital tools. 1.5 billion people live with a permanent disability, yet 90% of platforms fail to consider their needs in design. That likely includes your digital properties too, unless you put an effort into designing it with health centricity in mind. Now imagine this, the combined purchasing power of this underserved group and their families is $18 trillion. What would your growth look like if even 10% of that market could be unlocked? Just imagine the potential, right? Pooh, we can do so much more, so much better, scale across the globe. The cases I presented earlier aren't edge cases. They are daily realities for millions. My mom has arthritis. She cannot use mouse. She has to rely on voice navigation. The platforms do not provide that most of the time. My grandmother has dementia. For her, memory loss and remembering what she needs to click on is hard to do because tooltips are not filled out correctly, the journeys are not defined, there is no simple logic. Other people have something of their own. And designing for those people, not to limit their experience, is something that enhances their digital freedoms and boosts your business. Because when your brand builds for real humans with all their strengths and challenges, you don't just meet accessibility standards, you earn trust, you deepen engagement, and you position your company for sustainable and scalable growth. Now, let's layer the compliance landscape, because when it comes to accessibility, what was once seen as a legal checkbox is fast becoming a strategic differentiator. You have users on one side of the coin, and they demand health-centric experiences for productivity, for learning, shopping, connecting. And the other side, you have a regulatory push that forces your business to comply. Otherwise, to get fines of up to $1 million, being banned from the market of operation. And if you're a multi-regional business, you have to comply in every market of presence. In the United States, digital accessibility lawsuits under the Americans with Disabilities Act have tripled over the past 5 years, targeting everything from retail sites to mobile apps and financial services. Canada is governed by both the Accessible Canada Act and provincial frameworks like AODA in Ontario, which require digital compliance for public and private sector organizations. These mandates are already enforceable, and penalties will become more significant as regulatory enforcement catches up to digital transformation. Across the Atlantic, in the European Union, the European Accessibility Act comes into full force on June 28th, just a couple of weeks from now, introducing for the first time in European history a private right of action for digital accessibility violations. A lot of lawyers, a lot of people are already forming acts and complaints in order to go to court, which gonna be costly for businesses operating in Europe. The regulation applies to a wide range of sectors. The European Accessibility Act includes e-commerce, banking, e-books, smart devices, and public service kiosks, the ones that on the train stations where you buy kiosk. And it is as strict as general data protection regulation. So be aware, if you are going to Europe, operating in Europe, you have to comply, and your website has to meet accessibility checklist and requirements before June 28th. And then within the next week after, be fast to polish it off if you haven't started yet. So let's be clear. If your digital experience isn't accessible, it's not just invisible to millions, it's also legally vulnerable. It creates a tremendous risk, and you can be facing lawsuits, fines, and damaged brand trust. But here's the opportunity. Compliance isn't a burden, it's a blueprint. It guides you toward building seamless, scalable, and human-centered digital foundations. And here's something every CMO in the room should know. Compliance cannot be outsourced as an overlay. It must be built into your native code. That's the requirement of the compliance. It should be in your product DNA, not added on like a sticky note. Let me give you a cautionary tale. because some of you have this icon for accessibility. You click on it and the widget comes. In January 2025, the Federal Trade Commission fined the company Accessibility 1 million for deceptive advertising. What happened, you ask? Accessibility promised that its accessibility overlay tool could make websites fully compliant with standards like the ADA and Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. But the tool didn't make permanent code changes, a key requirement by regulators. Businesses who relied on it, well, many were sued and fined. Not only did clients pay for false promises, they became part of a class action. So this is one of the cases where the overlays are really not what you want to focus on. You want to go and think internally, redesigning the user experiences of your external platforms in order to be truly compliant and accessible by design, providing that tremendous user experience on the external platforms. So is accessibility part of your core code base? Ask yourself this question. Your design process and your marketing promise. If you're serious about brand equity, user engagement, and future growth, accessibility must be part of your core code base, your design process, and your marketing promise. And this is the moment to lead, not because you have to, but because the brands that do it right today will win trust and market share tomorrow. It's like with all the new tech coming to market. If you are first to launch it, you benefit much more in the long run. Okay. Next slide is about health-centric personalization. So how does it feel like? Imagine a landing page that auto-adjusts contrast based on visual fatigue patterns, navigation that slows down or simplifies for cognitive overload, a chatbot that detects stuttering or voice tremors and automatically switches to text-based support, a dashboard that reconfigures its layouts for someone using only keyboard commands. We are now building a set of features because we have this comprehensive AI system, agentic AI-driven, to enable external and internal tools and platforms to the highest level of accessibility from usability and compliance perspective. And we are about to add the eye tracking and gesture navigation for the external platforms. That means people who are paralyzed up to their nose and can rely only on their eyes can continue being independent, shopping, learning, clicking, and operating the digital experiences. The platforms online do not provide more than probably mouse navigation, keyboard navigation, and some voice navigation. But you should think broader of all the health profiles available out there, because people are different and they want to connect with your brand. But if your interface stops them, that's where the trust is lost and customers are going away. And artificial intelligence, when aligned with human uniqueness and inclusive design, can move beyond internal efficiencies to create lasting external value. Modular AI architecture and agentic AI systems offer a great solution to automating accessibility. So please do challenge your teams to build this in-house, or you can find a partner like Evenus or any other company that you fancy offering agentic AI systems for health personalization of digital experiences and continuous compliance monitoring. It's not one-off. Compliance is not just to audit for today. It should be continuous because every design tweak affects your score. Now, back to the data discussion. All of this, the personalization, the compliance, the empathy depends on how you structure your data. And here are 3 simple questions for you. Please comment in the chat space, yes, 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 Nope, nope, nope. I'm not fully sure. Or maybe, wow, Eve, these are not simple questions at all. All right, I see the chat's coming in. Okay. So ask yourself and ask your teams, go back home into the office, remote office, and ask, is our content semantically tagged? Can our product catalog adapt to assistive technologies? Are our customer profiles enriched with behavioral and health contextual insights? Because these are the first questions you want to look into in order to ensure that people of different health profiles, visual, hearing, cognitive, sensory, motor, and speech, they all designed in the core of your product and your systems. Structured, inclusive data does not just serve internal dashboards. It feeds AI with clarity it needs to personalize safely, meaningfully, and responsibly. So where does that leave you as CMOs or heads of departments, chief executive officers, business leads? Audit your experiences through the lens of health. Temporary, chronic, slowly evolving. Focus on these 6 health profiles I mentioned to you. So once again, visual, auditory or hearing, cognitive, sensory, speech, and motor. Reimagine your AI tools as adaptive, not just generative. What would be, ask yourself, what would be an empathetic recommender engine look like? How would it support my users online if they have this unique health profile? How do we define this customer journey? Partner across departments, that is very important. So compliance, product, IT, to embed accessibility into your strategic core, not just as an afterthought. Oh, wow, we're about to be fined because we did not think about compliance. No, do it before that. Just sit down in the chat circle and say, okay, guys, let's think about our user journeys and our interfaces. Are they still relevant? Do people come and enjoy the experience? Because once they start doing that, enjoying the experience, they come for more. They come as brand advocates. They lobby your business on your behalf everywhere to their friends, colleagues, communities. And that's how you grow. And that's how you scale with a very organic growth and a lot of love. US CMOs, chief marketing officers, and heads of departments are uniquely positioned today to lead this transformation. It may sound something new, but health-centric design just hasn't been a priority. Now, with aging population, it becomes more and more a focal point. You already shape brand stories. Now it's time to shape how those stories are experienced by everyone. The future of marketing leadership won't be defined by who adopted AI the fastest, right? It will be defined by who adopted it most meaningfully to drive better outcomes, deepen trust, and more inclusive engagement. So I want to say thank you for the time given me to present this highly important topic. Maybe open eyes on the value of redesigning your platforms. And I'm open to your questions. I want to have a little bit of chat as we have a bit of time left. Just question, answer, or something that you would like to share. I would appreciate it. Thank you. And meanwhile, I'm looking for, you can actually activate your voice or share something in the chat. I'm looking at the last comment. Sanjana wrote, I volunteer with a recreational cycling nonprofit that serves individuals who are visually impaired. Wow. A recurring feedback is the challenge they face in navigating social media and the broader digital landscape. Appreciate you talking about this. Thanks, Eve. Okay, thank you, Sanjana. How do you think your efforts will compare to bespoke AI accessibility products? Also, we cannot unmute apparently. Oh, maybe the team can help with this.
I've
That
already
would be.
enabled the unmute functionality. You can unmute to ask a question from now on going forward.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Yes. Hello.
Mhm.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I do hear you.
Okay,
Mhm.
perfect. I just wanted to say, first of all, thank you for the presentation. You're tackling a very important issue in the modern day that AI can definitely help with. But yeah, people they've when OpenAI first announced GPT-4o, for instance, they showcased how they were piloting a blind person watching like a horse derby. Google did something similar at the recent I/O conference. I'm not saying that what you're doing is useless. Obviously, every person should have access by default, and it is a legal requirement. But do you foresee dedicated AI accessibility services either being baked into these AIs by default or offered via wrappers to people with special needs?
So the modern technology, which is AI powered, whether it's agentic or just large language models, they do include a lot of cool stuff from accessibility perspective. But the thing is, you as the user need to ask in order to enable it or structure the content. And what is needed from accessibility perspective is that the businesses who build their platforms incorporate the logic into their workflows. So if you are using the large language model of some kind, it's up to you as a business to structure it the way that brings attention, value, content summarization. ADHD people, for example, they don't read, they scan. So do you have the bolding elements of the key messaging? Do you have something that empowers them to understand? And while technology offers you all these possibilities, it's up to the developers and engineers and designers to tweak the content to make sense. So therefore, it's kind of, the gray area right now. You have so much you can do, but do you do that? Arman, what are your thoughts on this? Have you been playing with AI in order to improve accessibility?
Well, for one thing, as someone with ADHD, it is helpful to get like a high level, not just a brief, but like an engaging way of explaining something. I would always skim Wikipedia articles, and that was always fun because I am an adept reader despite my ADHD. But it is nice to get something fed to you in a fun way, in a more sort of direct way. And to a similar end, I use the service Kagi. They're a search engine, but they offer a web page summary AI alongside their service. And that's great for like long articles, just sort of getting a high level overview. Is this going to be worth my time to read? And that kind of stuff. Again, it isn't traditional accessibility, and then it's not like sight aid, hearing aid, etc. But it does help sort of cognitive disabilities in a way that only a cognitive tool can.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. But the thing is, if I'm going to majority of the websites, web platforms right now, I go through the same structure pretty much: home, product, about us, blogs, or news. And then once it gets to the content does not optimize. It's just a blank publication that is fixed and sometimes even not responsive. You can always go to those auditor tools that scan your website and tell you what is not working, and it will address responsiveness. It will address ARIA labeling for the blind people. It will address most probably the key issues: color contrast, immersive experiences like all these plain 3D videos or just nice videos. They don't have the proper tagging. Font size is fixed, and there is a certain metrics, like your button has to be this size, your text needs to be scalable to this size. It's all because those health profiles is the best for them, right? They need that. But if you as individual go to ask ChatGPT, like taking the link or copying the content and saying, okay, I have ADHD, make sense out of it for me. Then it does it for you. But if I go to the platform does not give me that. So that's all about businesses putting an effort to supporting people with ADHD and paralysis and blindness and so on and so forth. So great question that you brought up. And the point, I really appreciate it, Arman.
Yes, yes. AI really does seem to fill in all the gaps in our existing frameworks a lot of the time. Gaps in knowledge, gaps in capability, and now gaps in accessibility. I think that's a really wonderful thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a question from Craig. How do you balance UX for the majority of your users and accommodate this small segment? Hey, Craig, do you want to join via voice so we chat about it? What exactly?
Yeah, like for example,
What you
we've done some stuff on websites where we've tried to do a lot of accommodations for disabilities and whatnot. So for example, not using spinning carousels and whatnot. But you know, the frustrations we had was that that accommodation for what is a very small population of our audience potentially is interfering with driving folks to spend money with us, buy programs, or get to where we need them to go. So I feel like that's, you know, the wrong side of the fulcrum. And but at the same time, you know, not that we don't want to make these accommodations, but they certainly can't impact our pathway to revenue.
Well, I hear you. You represent business. Business think money, and money come through this very friendly, usable experience. So how do we merge both? First, to start with personas, understanding the 6 health profiles, 6 groups. And then you go into the setup of your website and auditing, checking what the issues are, fixing the foundational ones to support people using, if they're blind, the screen readers, to ensure that the navigation is consistent and so on and so forth. Then you look not only at the navigation flows and structure of your website and labeling of all the sections, you look at the images. So how do they appear? Can they be turned off? Because maybe people prefer minimalistic view, or they have, I'm not sure, sensory, some kind of disorder, epilepsy or vertigo, something that elements of your website would provoke that. Do we offer cognitive support, understanding the content we publish on our website? So once you have the review, the audit of this, then looking from the perspective of these 6 personas, probably you would require a focus group if you're doing it all in-house. But what can be done to optimize the content? And then in the content part, you start thinking as business. Okay, if I'm summarizing key messages for a ADHD person, presenting our new product solution, what is the right part of this text where my content promoting the product, call to action comes in? Because if they scan fast, do I put it in the first paragraph and the second underneath something on the side? And this is the mapping of the journeys. We do it automatically for personalizations with agentic AI, modular AI, and so on. We building the system to simplify all of this. But in-house, you need to kind of sit and think through how does it all play together. It cannot be either or. Because first it's accessing your platform. So if my image is 5 GB, will it load in less connected areas? If it can't load, then the person won't see the product. If my image is optimized, but alt text is missing, blind people obviously won't see it. Give you an example, go to Best Buy, American platform selling different products. Great, you can buy everything if you're healthy. Our system flags 80% of the images not having alt text. If you're a blind person, it's majority of the website is blank, blank, blank. And that's how our system reads the content from the blind perspective. So it's all about paying attention to how your team publish and if they are following the compliance. It's just the checklist that helps your digital teams and developers to really know that this all needs to happen. If you are more advanced, build a quality assurance accessibility AI system that scans across all your platform and flags issues, even biases in your data sets. You can go as far as that, and then optimizes the user experience. But it takes an effort. It requires a budget. I hope, Craig, this somewhat answers your question. Let me know.
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately it's always about balancing. I think that maybe in a B2B environment, it's a bit different than when it is in a mass consumer environment where you do have a lot more variability, but that's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Craig, for asking. Koa, you mentioned Reimagine with AI tool as adaptive. Can you please clarify how and which tools shall we use? Koa, join me with the voice. Let's have a chat.
Right.
So why
Hi,
this
can you hear me?
interest? Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, hi, nice. Yeah,
Why did you ask this
yeah.
question? Yeah. Mhm.
No, I'm actually planning for the audit and we're working like trying to optimize the website, not just improving the e-commerce itself, like the outcomes, but also try to be friendly with every users as much as we can. So that's why but my concern is when we're saying like we reimagine, we use the AI tools as adaptive, but that's still just tools. But when it comes to, personal experience, it's varied. Lots of people out there. We have yeah, and different people, different tastes. Yeah. So I'm just wondering like how we use it as adaptive. And we have different tools, a lot of tools. So any tools that you think could be a good fit.
I'm thinking beyond, thanks for the question. That's a really relevant one. And I am a visionary person, so I try to help you imagine. Majority of our platforms are still somewhat 2000s design. Despite the flashy images or 3D animations that you insert there, the structure is still the same. It's not a journey. It's just a static presentation of what you offer. Rethink that. Because what we
Angel,
are...
tu wyślij mnie. Ało.
Hello?
Glenn, I think you're off mute.
Okay. All right. Okay, so what I want you to think about, where do you offer that touch point for them to define the experience that happens next? So user comes to website, maybe those pop-ups that you have, imagine it's a alcohol brand. They usually have a pop-up saying, I'm 21 years old. Or if you are asking about accept my cookies, there's something popping up on the screen. Tell them on the first step to define what's important for them. And then make sure everything that follows, every page, every content part, adjusts to what they selected. You do not need to collect their health data. Do not do that. Anonymized ways, not where you record each user's name and then what's their health profile. That is a no-no, according to compliance, according to GDPR and other standards. But what you can use it for, you see the ID number of the user, it's anonymized collection of data that defines the journey forward. That's it. And then it remembers that ID and sets it for the next time that the user comes back in the same way. Unless they go to your little human icon, maybe you still keep it there, but empower it with your own features, because those overlays, honestly, like I open them and there are 5 to 10 boxes that the features that I can use, but it's generic. I need to fit myself into this box. I'm unique. You need to offer me the opportunities that I feel comfortable about. So that's why understanding those profiles, what important to them, defines those clickable functions that redesign your website. I know it sounds complicated because it's a lot of work, honestly. But with AI, it simplifies. You have agentic AI, you have modular features, whatever you empower on your website for the user journeys, and you plug it in at different stages that you define and map it on agentic AI system. It may be 2, 3, 4 systems. It depends on what you are addressing. from purchases to productivity to, I don't know, admin dashboards. But if you design it well, this is the new interface of the modern time that allows the user to control your content in the way that makes sense to them. All right, we have a few minutes and I see a lot of questions coming in. Ko, I hope I answered your question. So,
Thank you.
yeah, okay, great, thank you. Roberto, why do you think many companies aren't doing this? What are the barriers? 90% official metric, 90% of online platforms are not fully compliant, meaning not fully accessible. They're only 10% and they are big almighty user-driven like Nike and some other big companies who do invest into the whole user experience. Majority are thinking it's an afterthought. Imagine you are a business lead and you have to sell a lot of products in order to generate revenue. So you are focusing on profits. You still ask your teams to do outbound, maybe inbound, you prioritize social media, Facebook advertising, whoever uses it still. But if you are with aging population, you should just to not pay for ads. I mean, I know it's good, it's fast, but redesign in an organic way that people do enjoy, and then they come for more. It's word of mouth then that generates your leads with a little advertising budget. So the leads usually think of, okay, we've been doing that worked for us, let's continue focusing on that, and I need to launch another product, so it's more budget. Well, you want me to focus on accessibility? Why does it matter? And how much does it cost? I tell you, 50 pages, usually to meet one compliance is about $55,000 if you do it manually. So you hire a compliance officer or consultant, you have developers, designers. 35K if it's hybrid, AI/manual, but it's all one-time review. It's not continuous compliance. So many companies just challenged why to invest so much in redesign if it works so fast, so good, and we're still generating revenue. They just don't know how much revenue they can unlock if 18 trillion is available in the market and you unlock 10%. Accessibility is worth it from the business perspective. Robert, I hope I answered your question. All right, looking at time, we are probably, I can take 2 more questions. Dimple, also, are consumers even accepting their cognitive limitations and the labeling to then want special access? Dimple, can you join me on the call? Let's talk about it. So it's a long one. Normal majority. Not that anybody is watching, but I'm wondering if they themselves accept and therefore is there a demand for this segmentation? The obvious yes, we all agree, which we'll still need that adjustment away from the optimal performance factors. What is the data other than the large 70%? Data metrics. So if you are in the United States, and let me quickly, I'm not sure exactly for the data in Canada precisely. I'm based right now in the US. I come from the Netherlands, so that's more to markets. I'm more aware in terms of data. But if you are actually asking, so what is the segmentation? Why do I need to prioritize it? Here's why. The number for people with visual impairments in the United States, something about 2 million people that are usually affected, like with declined health for visual. 27 million is hearing, auditory of different kind. I can hear, but it's declining. I cannot hear, or I have to rely on assistive technology. About 23 million United States adults with speech disorders, different from not being able to speak to speaking with difficulty. 10 million US adults with cognitive conditions, and that cover autism, it cover ADHD, it covered just cognitive understanding in simple terms, and memory. 40 million motor impairments, so car accident affect maybe broken arms, legs, necks, but there are also motor like paralysis, MS, and so on that really prevents you from using websites or mobile apps. So those people rely on different forms of navigating and operating the experiences. And 30 million with vestibular disorders. And we'll look here at like vertigo. If you're going into immersive environments, and I teach at Algoma and Yorkville project management for AR, VR experiences, it is very important to consider how you design the experience to promote your product or put that game to action. You need to let people know that some experiences happen in the long run that may affect your health, vertigo, epilepsy, and be able to mitigate those. So therefore, the number of people, it's not just, I know one in my community, it's actually millions of people having somewhat problem. And look, we all age. Today, you're all healthy, you see well. You reach 40, you start putting glasses on because it's harder to read, harder to look. And then you gradually get to something new, something else. It's inevitable. But the platforms should think about that as well. Because if, for example, people who don't have families and rely on themselves, it's just human right to be digitally included. Because then they can support themselves and stay independent. And that preserves their dignity as well. All right, we are on top of the hour, and I think, unfortunately, I can't take any more questions, but I would love all of you to reach out to me on LinkedIn if you would like to continue the discussion. I shared my QR code in the presentation. Feel free, would love to connect. Okay, enjoy the rest of this wonderful event. I've been attending and learning loads from all the speakers, as well as all your questions and comments. So have fun today, and I am happy I gave you something to think about in the long run. Alrighty, bye.